Hello, we are group two of Elena Canovis's Architecture 501 studio in the fall of 2024, and we are going to be presenting on the Boyle Heights neighborhood in Los Angeles County, California. Thank you.
History. The route of the LA River starts far outside of LA, where many streams and rivers flow out of the mountains, converging together to gain power and water. After the flood of 1938, when 100 people died in the greater LA area, the Army Corps of Engineers initiated the LA River Project to what we see today to prevent future flooding and loss of life. Next.
There's a very rich history of activism and social justice in the Boyle Heights neighborhood. It was the center of the Chicano movement in the 1960s, which was a leading organizing group for Hispanic civil rights. Later, the Madres de Esta LA kind of took that same energy and channeled it towards environmental advocacy and civil rights. And now there's still advocacy going on, mostly fighting still for environmental rights as well as against gentrification and displacement in Boyle Heights.
Climate. The climate is wet or dry, but even on your wettest season, the most rain expected would be 20% of the month. 55% of residents in Boyle Heights pay more than half their income to rent. Housing burden can have negative implications on health and cause people to need to make difficult decisions like not turning on the AC during a heat wave or not going to outside on a bad air day. Next. Environment. The Boyle Heights community is ranked in the top 5% for most environmentally burdened neighborhoods in the state, amongst the highest in Los Angeles in levels of childhood asthma and other health risks related to pollution. The community has an area of 17 square miles and a population of 230,000. The community is impacted by freight activities, including 6 rail yards, large facilities with activities such as metal coating, smelting, refinery, rendering, meat byproduct processing. The community's sensitive receptors include 90 schools, 48 licensed daycare facilities, and 14 hospitals. The community has the highest rate of poverty and unemployment. The schools that are in close proximity to those pollution centers. The average tree canopy in Los Angeles is 21%, but in Boyle Heights, it's only 6.2. This means the residents of Boyle Heights are more vulnerable to the effects of rising temperatures. Research shows that the areas with less tree cover are linked to poorer health. This includes higher rates of asthma, chronic lung disease, and premature death. Next. Ecology and legacy of redlining. Today's disparities of green infrastructure can in part be traced back to redlining practices initiated during the Great Depression. Due to this discriminatory practice, banks were reluctant to provide business loans and home mortgages in these areas. Boyle Heights was a redline community. Research shows that previous redline areas have significant infrastructure problems, including fewer sidewalks, more concrete, less tree cover, the design deficiencies that have been linked to higher temperature, poorer health, and adverse economic impacts. Next.
The local economic factors in Boyle Heights, there's a lower than average median household income as well as a lower than average amount of home ownership. It's not a huge center of economic production. However, there are economically or culturally significant economic centers and corridors, and also a pretty thriving arts community in and around Boyle Heights. The built environment is characterized by high density, low rise residential, although there is some industrial along the river corridor, as you can see in blue in this diagram. It is also important to note the freeways that cut through the neighborhood, which are a critical part of the built environment that have negatively impacted it.
So the preservation of historic structures is a key element in balancing development with heritage conservation. It can be done through a variety of strategies such as adaptive reuse and the incorporation of historic elements. While considering those strategies, we encounter some new challenges like maintaining original structures, meeting modern building codes, new safety standards, and accessibility. Here we see a great example for adaptive reuse. The Southern California Institute of Architecture took the old Santa Fe freight yard and transformed it into their architecture campus. This brought new use to a once abandoned area while maintaining the history.
Infrastructure. In the year 1900, Los Angeles was a new city and was therefore not dense like European cities. Trolley lines created gaps, which were then filled with roads for cars to drive on. The weather in Los Angeles accommodates convertibles and cars without heaters, so car culture became a very big part of life in Los Angeles. Despite huge highways and bad traffic, Angelenos are moderately satisfied with Los Angeles' infrastructure. Next.
Transportation. Los Angeles International Airport, otherwise known as LAX, is the fourth busiest airport in the world and second busiest in the United States, based on the number of passengers. There are also 4 other airports in the greater Los Angeles area. In 2018, 78.5 million passengers used LAX. LAX is the busiest domestic origination and destination passenger market in the US, with more domestic travelers beginning and ending their trip at LAX than any other US airport. Approximately 88% of travelers at LAX are origination and destination passengers, and 12% are connecting. LAX handled 26.1 million international travelers in 2018, which was 30% of the airport's total passenger volume. Local transportation. The top means of transportation for people in Boyle Heights used to get to work are car, bus, trolley bus, or walking. A total of 26.6 thousand residents commute by car. 3,000 prefer going to work by bus or trolley, and 1,100 by walking. Currently, LA County Bicycle Coalition has been awarded $100,000 to alleviate transportation gaps and identify the mobility challenges, needs, preferences, and priorities in the Boyle Heights and East LA residents. Next.
So respecting cultural landmarks and community involvement are a few strategies to maintain cultural heritage and community identity. A case study of this is Mariachi Plaza. It's a culturally rich landmark and is a hub for music, social gatherings, and cultural events, which enrich the cultural fabric of the area.
Food systems. Before the pandemic, low-income households' food insecurity had been improving from 31% in 2011 to 27% in 2018. By 2023, food insecurity had risen to 44%, and studies showed that food insecurity was 2 times higher in Hispanic and Latino communities in comparison to white communities. Research shows that some of these issues also come from lack of available grocery stores. Next.
Politics and policies. California is a primarily democratic state. In its court system, this is the largest in the nation, which serves a population of more than 39 million people. People of Black, other people of color, and families in poverty are harmed by this racist system. In the 2010s, justice system reform helped to reduce incarceration, but unfortunately provided no help to those people. Next.
With new developments come the challenges of balancing gentrification and affordable housing. Equitable developments and the integration of affordable housing projects such as Lorena Project and other resources backed by the city can help mitigate these issues and benefit the locals rather than pushing them out.
Housing policies. Over 35,000 housing units have been approved in the last 2 years. No taxpayer dollars were used to pay for these housing units because of a mayoral executive order entered by Mayor Karen Bass, signed in December 2022, of which there have been multiple lawsuits and a political battle over, although it does allow private developers to get into the affordable projects area, which then helps people by creating more affordable housing. Next.
So there are actually quite a few social services programs that have kind of originated within Boyle Heights, mostly focused on family health, education, childhood education, and job resources. But the community still doesn't meet the metrics and outcomes that it desires. As far as amenities, there is the Heights Museum and many kind of small cultural sites throughout Boyle Heights. There's, as has been noted, very little green space and recreation opportunities within the neighborhood.
Land occupancy and development. Boyle Heights has medium and low medium to multifamily residential units, has some open space as well as lots of public facilities and freeways. Next.
The city has implemented a few zoning policies to help support affordable housing and minimize displacement in the area. Match provides a system that helps communities with affordable housing, providing easier access to public transportation within these communities.
So now we come to our 5 takeaways and 5 design recommendations, and I'll just walk through them quickly. So first of all, we noted the kind of antagonistic relationship between the very strong and stable cultural heritage of the neighborhood, which is working, sometimes being undermined by gentrification and displacement. And so our design principle is that our mixed-use housing needs to prioritize accessibility for current residents. Second, we have the fact that there's a very strong contingent of community leadership from within the community, and numerous support services offered from within the community. And so it's our job to design in a way that upholds and uplifts and augments those efforts, primarily by listening and seeing what it is we can do best with our design. Third, we identified that because of redlining and other historically kind of violent planning practices, Boyle Heights has become an acutely dangerous microclimate. And so it's very important that we use green spaces and environmentally regenerative design practices, including habitat for pollinators within our designs to basically improve the health and quality of life in and around the neighborhood. Our fourth takeaway is that the economic situation for the population of Boyle Heights is basically pretty dire. There's a very low median household income and a low proportion of home ownership. And so for our fourth design principle, it's kind of two-pronged. First of all, we need to be designing in such a way that we're increasing people's opportunity to find good gainful employment. And secondly, our housing that we produce needs to be affordable and also comfortable and have a high quality of life that allows people to start building a platform of financial security. So if they do want to go on and purchase a house, that's a possibility. It's not a place to rent forever. And then lastly, we just took note of the fact that there has been a ton of great work done by the city of Los Angeles and within the Boyle Heights community to design planning documents and guidelines, and following those seems to be in the best interest of the local residents. So using those guidelines as a framework for our design process can really help us maximize the positive outcomes of our design. So thank you very much. This has been our presentation, and we wish you well in all of your future designing endeavors.